Despite pressure and interference from Russia, the people of Moldova have chosen democracy, reforms, and a European future. This is how the European Union welcomed the results of the parliamentary elections in the neighboring country. In the Moldovan vote, pro-Russian forces failed to gain a decisive advantage. The party of pro-Western President Maia Sandu is securing a majority in parliament. What efforts did Moscow make to disrupt these elections, and how did the supporters of the West manage to win? TSN correspondent Kateryna Fedorchenko will tell us more.
Disinformation, preparations for unrest, and voter bribery. The parliamentary elections in Moldova took place under extremely tense conditions, particularly because Moscow was making intensified efforts to halt Chisinau's European path.
There is already enough evidence that Russia is and will be carrying out significant interference, and we will see how this will affect the results.
One of the methods used by the Russians, already familiar to Ukrainians, is the influence of the church connected to Moscow, which persuades its parishioners to vote for pro-Russian forces. The Moldovan authorities have spoken about this.
Russia recruits and trains priests during so-called comprehensive pilgrimages in order to turn religion into a weapon. After the training, the priests come to Moldova and use their influence to sow distrust, undermine public confidence, and create and fuel suspicion.
Reuters has identified several politicians from Putin's United Russia Party who accompanied Moldovan priests on trips to the aggressor country. Journalists have calculated that nearly 90 new Telegram channels called Accounts of Orthodox Parishes of Moldova have been created in the past year. Most of them published identical content almost daily, urging believers to oppose the pro-Western decisions of the government. And thousands of believers read this. Fortunately, Moscow's tricks didn't really help it much. Voter turnout in the pro-Russian regions was relatively low, particularly because the authorities relocated 5 polling stations intended for voters from Transnistria. They did this to reduce security risks, including possible false bomb threats and other provocations. As a result, the party of pro-Western President Maia Sandu secured a majority in parliament. The political force Action and Solidarity received more than 50% of the votes. According to forecasts, this will give them 54 seats in parliament, which has a total of 101 seats. However, the pro-Russian party, Patriotic Bloc, led by the former president, will also enter Moldova's parliament. They received more than 24% of the votes. This will give the party 27 seats. The pro-European party Alternative also made it into parliament, and according to forecasts, it will have 8 mandates. 2 other political forces may receive a small number of votes. A number of Western politicians have already responded to the election results. Chisinau is being congratulated on the victory of democracy, and comprehensive support is being promised for its European path. Kateryna Fedorchenko, TSN 1+1 Marathon United News.
Let's talk about the hybrid war that Russia has already unleashed in Europe. Let's talk about drones, particularly those over Denmark, over other countries, over Sweden, and about Moldova. Let's start with the drones that are flying over European countries. We see and understand that this is a tool that is cheap, simple, but actually leads to the temporary collapse of entire sectors, particularly aviation. What should Europe do about this? And what are the next steps Russia might take in this direction?
It will continue to escalate this tension. As I said, unless the Russians are slapped on the wrist like the Turks did, everyone, as they say, even the laziest person has used this example, they will, to put it mildly, become even more brazen. Why are they doing this? It's important for them to cut us off from military aid. They're not sure they'll be able to overpower us by the end of spring. And in order to continue, for example, to launch a spring-summer offensive campaign, they will need significant assistance. And possibly that will come from China. Right now, they're selling their energy resources and their richest oil and gas regions to the Chinese. Putin said directly, get ready to heat your homes with resources like firewood, because everything will be exported to China. And he understands that all of this could, to put it mildly, collapse. That's why with these actions, he's showing this is your price for Ukraine. You gave them weapons, and now you have nothing left to shoot down with. What should they do? Go to Ukraine. And now the president is inviting them to learn how to shoot down drones using our inexpensive means. And in fact, we took this step which sparked mixed discussions in society about selling our weapons. It's important for us now to scale up our defense industry. Its volume is currently about $15 billion and it could grow to $35 billion. And by the way, to stop the negative trend where some manufacturers, due to underutilization, are relocating their business to Europe where it becomes valuable. This is the first way. Another path for Denmark is the proposal Sweden made regarding the protection of its airspace. Sweden was outside of NATO for a long time. They often developed their own projects, sometimes with the British. That's why they have the Gripen. It's a Swedish development, and they have their own short and medium range systems for shooting down drones. And they say they can hit almost anything there, even something as small as a pack of some product, like they describe it as a pack of pasta. That is, they are very accurate, and they also have their own navigation system, which uses platforms with 7.62 and 12.7 machine guns. These are standard calibers as well as larger calibers, 30 to 40 millimeters. This is what the Swedes have already offered to share. So it is possible to exit this process. But again, Europe missed this opportunity when it saw this high-tech war and believed that it wouldn't happen. And what Kubilius, the European Commissioner for Defense, stated is that if they start addressing this problem quickly, it will take Europe at least a year.
We will continue the topic of hybrid warfare later in today's broadcast when we discuss the results of the elections in Moldova and the Transnistria factor. Thank you for being with us. Dimitro Zhmailo, co-founder and Executive Director of the Ukrainian Center for Security and Cooperation. We will also talk about personnel. We are displaying the QR code on the screen. What specialists are currently needed in the defense forces, and what will we be discussing today?
Today we will be talking about the 100th Brigade. This is quite a powerful brigade that has been our longtime partner. They have a huge selection of combat and non-combat vacancies. They have recruiters who process paperwork very quickly and handle all issues with the territorial recruitment centers. They need people with technical education to solder drones. They need communication specialists. They even need people to handle documents, and they need people for combat positions with greater corresponding support. Plus, there's the 18 to 24-month contract that Pavlo Palisa announced. It is still in effect, and it is being refined. There is an option for 1 year, there is an option for 2 years, and it will continue to be extended. If someone doesn't know what to do, they can reach out, get information, and only then make a final decision.
Unknown drones appeared again last night in the skies over Norway, Sweden, and Denmark.
Because of a drone, the Norwegian authorities had to turn around a passenger flight. It was en route from Oslo to Bardufoss. Unknown drones were also flying over the weekend, particularly in Denmark near military facilities. After that, the country's authorities announced the closure of the airspace to all civilian UAVs from Monday to Friday. 3 weeks ago, 24 Russian drones invaded Poland, some of which were shot down. A few days later, a drone violated Romanian airspace. Soon after, unidentified UAVs began appearing over civilian and military facilities in several NATO countries. It was not possible to definitively determine their origin. However, Western countries suspect Russia's involvement in these incidents and are considering how best to counter these threats.